All right, so now we're going to look at consequences for rules. We really want consequences to be really clear. The idea behind consequences is not to give a child a punishment and then we wrap it up in this pretty bow and we call it a consequence, right? That's what's happening a lot of times, that let's say timeout is not always implemented in the right way, and the way that we put a timeout, we call it timeout, we call it a consequence, but in fact it looks like a punishment to the child and it's heard as a punishment to the child. So we're going to delve into that a little bit more. We're going to look at consequences and what do we want our child to really learn. So again, when we give a child a consequence, what's the reason for the consequence? The reason for the consequence is for them to learn a new behavior, right? We really want to look we look at long term. What do I want for my child long term? How do I want to shape this behavior? That's really what the consequence is. It's not to make them feel bad, right? If we don't teach them that replacement, then anything that we do is really not being, utilized the right way. We're wasting our time here. We're not creating, we're not fixing any problem that's going on in the classroom. We're not fixing anything that's happening with this child. We're really just, punishing and moving on, right? Without really thinking of what is this long-term consequence? What is this long-term behavior that I want this child to truly have as an adult, okay? So when we teach a child consequences, what do I ideally want for my child? I want them to learn the natural consequences of life. That's what I really want, right? So what's important is that when we can, we allow a natural consequence to happen, okay? That's really, trusting that life and trusting that nature is, the greatest teacher is something that we have to learn, and we don't always have to go ahead and create a consequence for them, okay? So for example, a child that doesn't eat, you're going to be hungry. A child that is not sleeping, he's going to be tired. These are natural consequences that need to occur so that a child can learn what is a true consequence of life in these circumstances. Now, sometimes, a consequence is not easy to see being natural, like a natural consequence like that that's so direct. So then you want to pick a consequence that's related, okay? So what I see a lot of times is that no matter what behaviors we see in children, they get put into timeout right away instead of really having us address it. Again, it's not a consequence that's going to help them mold behavior, okay? What happens after that is that timeout is just seen as, as a punishment, number one. It's not effective. It doesn't become effective. A child starts screaming and yelling before even entering the timeout. So it takes away the effectiveness of that timeout instead of you really entering and trying to figure out in that moment what's happening. So I definitely realize it's a lot more challenging for teachers to do that than it is for parents, because there's less children around. You're one-on-one with that child, or 3 children in the home, whatever it is. So it's a lot easier to give it the attention that it needs. But at the same time, there is a certain level of having to address issues a certain way rather than just taking a child away to timeout, that if you take the time in the beginning will help you become more of an effective teacher long term, because you've addressed it from the start. You're nipping it in the bud from the start, and it's not developing into something bigger and bigger that can be controlled, okay? So if you could take the time, especially, and you pick your battles, you pick what's important to address, of course. But if you see yourself doing timeouts, for example, very easily versus really going in there and addressing it with children, that's an important thing to really start looking at, okay? We don't want to just give timeout left, right, and center. So when we look at consequences, what we want to look at, again, is, like we said, we want a child to learn what is a natural consequence of life, right? And so that's really where the discipline is coming from. The discipline is coming from teaching them that consequence, okay? That no matter what actions we have in life, there is a clear consequence that comes with it. And again, if we can keep it natural, we keep it as natural as we can. If not, we have a related consequence, okay? And when we do that, what it teaches is it teaches the child self-discipline. That's what it teaches them. Life is teaching them that. How do I self-discipline? Because we're not always going to be around. You know, their parents are not going to be around always either for them. So we really want, when we talk about self-parenting, right, we want a child to learn to self-parent so that we as teachers or we as parents don't need to be around to tell them right from wrong. They know inherently what they should do and what they shouldn't do, okay? So there's a few things that we need to look at if we want consequences to be effective. Number one, consequences are used when we want to extinguish a negative behavior. That's when you use a consequence, okay? You don't use a consequence when you want to see, when there's a positive behavior that you want to see more of. You use it to extinguish a negative behavior. That's number one. The second thing that we want, you always want to be very clear about what the consequences are, okay? So, for example, telling a child, if you misbehave, you're going to get a timeout. That's extremely vague because, number one, what does misbehave mean, right? So you got to be clear about what those behaviors are. It has to be, you can't run in the classroom or you can't yell in the classroom, something like that, right? Because you know, for a child, again, we don't know what they're coming from home. If they're allowed to run around and be wild and no one's saying anything, why would it not be okay at school? They don't get that. No one gave them a little rule book, you know? So, so we have to really keep that in mind. So we want to make sure that we're clear with what the behavior is that you're expecting, and you know, and also clear about the consequence that's coming along with it. So for example, you know, telling a child, if you misbehave, then you'll get time out, versus, you know, if you hit or you use your hands to hit, then you need to go sit in that chair, right, until you don't choose not to hit anymore, right? So it's a lot clearer because you just gave them something specific, right? Something really specific, instead of saying if you don't misbehave. Or even when it comes to rewards, it's the same thing. You don't get a reward or a token or a sticker for behaving in class, because what does that mean, right? I was talking to my friend while the teacher was talking. I didn't disrupt anyone, but you know, I was whispering something. We were, you know, I don't see it as I misbehaved. And then the child doesn't get a star reward for it, and then they lose it, right? But it has to be clear. No talking in class, raising your hand when you need to speak, right? Things like that, so that a child knows, oh, these are the actual expected behaviors. Get super clear on what you want to see, okay? If you just tell your children in class, you need to behave, what does that mean, okay? There's too much room for interpretation for what that means. Another thing that we want in order for consequences to be effective, we have to give them immediately. You can't wait till, you know, after recess or after you finish your circle time to be able to give the consequences. It has to be done right there and then, okay? Again, we said that we wanted to have as much as possible natural consequences, but when those are not capable of happening, we want to look at something that's relatable. So we want a consequence that matches the behavior, okay? So for example, a child that hits, that's something that we see a lot. So then they cannot be with friends because they don't make friends feel safe. So they need to be removed from the situation until they are ready to come back and use their hands nicely, okay? So that's one place that you want to remove a child. But you know, if it's something, for example, that a child is hitting and you tell them, then you're not going to playground, it's not relatable, right? It's just going to cause a lot of frustration. Most likely a child that uses their body to be able to, you know, to respond to other children and hits them is someone that needs the movement anyway, but that's a whole other discussion, right? But if you're removing recess from a child that hit, in their mind, that just frustrates them even more. What's the relation here? Like, what's going on, right? Whereas the child gets removed from the situation because they're hitting, because they don't make others feel safe. So learn to use your body safely, then you can go back in and play with your friends. That makes more sense, okay? And that's relatable. All right, so I want to look at a few examples of rules and consequences, okay? Things that come up most often with parents that I discuss. So for example, using a respectful tone of voice when talking, okay? First thing you want to do is become a living example yourself, right? So if a child is yelling to others and uses a tone of voice that's very high, you model the behavior. That's the first thing that you want to do. Make sure that you're modeling a calm and lower behavior, and model the way you want to hear it, right? I want that toy. That's what they're doing. You just go over to them and you just literally model it in the moment and say, I want that toy, please, right? And see if just doing that will help them mold and shape that behavior. Again, one of the most important things that you could be is a living example of the behavior that you want to see. If you yell, all you're teaching is for them to yell. I don't want you to yell like that. We don't yell in our class. You just yelled. Okay? So that's really, really important. Model the behavior that that you want to see. Then fighting in the classrooms, again, using our hands. Using our hands is something that is one of the set rules, right? That we don't hit. And so that's something that, you know, you want to address in the moment, and and it's something that you always want to address. There's no exceptions, no matter how small the hit was, right? Whether it's a small hit, a big hit, you know, you always want to address it. So again, use your judgment. If you feel that, let's say it was during circle time and someone gave a little hit, you know, we address it, but we address it by asking that child to just sit back a little bit, right? Or you can have a chair really close by. Sit. When you're ready, you can come back, right? We don't use our hands like that. We use our hands nicely. Or if it was a big hit and that you feel that that child needs a little bit of a timeout, that's, you know, or removed from, you know, the rest of the children, then that's when you give a timeout for it. Let's just sit down until we, you know, calm our body, we have a calm body, and then you can come back, right? Versus sometimes what happens during a circle time, number one, it's going to disrupt your entire circle time. The child starts screaming and yelling. Don't be afraid of it. You know the child is going to kick and scream. It should not hold you back from imposing a consequence, okay? Because again, you want them to learn that you are going to always be super consistent. If you're not consistent, they're going to push it again, and it takes even longer to remove those behaviors, okay, and to mold them. Let's see if I have other examples. We talked about picking up the toys, for example. So again, if you know, I always look at why a child is not picking up the toys. Sometimes, again, they don't have to pick up at home, so they don't know to do it. If you just model the behavior with them, I'm going to help you, slowly but surely you know, remove the help. You know, I always want to work on something with the child before I go ahead and you know, do it because the child is you know, is being resistant, and that they just want to you know, go over your authority. Most of the time it's not because of that. A child is not trying to undermine your authority, but rather, you know, there's other reasons why they're not doing certain things. For example, cleaning up, right? I find a lot of times children that don't clean up, they have nannies that clean up, and so they ask me, can you clean up? That's how they think cleaning up is, right? So when you look at it that way, you're like, no, we do it together. We made the mess together. We do it together. Or, you know, or I say, oh no, you know what? You took the toys and you were playing with them. I want you to clean up, but I will help you, right? So be open to that. And again, you model the behavior, and when you start seeing that you can wean yourself out, you wean yourself out of it, okay? Again, enter whatever it is that's happening so that you can try and really mold the behavior before you actually have to implement, you know, a strong consequence. But again, if we're talking about something that's a set rule, then, you know, a set consequence has to come with it all the time, and you're always going for that same set consequence. When it's flexible, there's a lot more flexibility to play within it. There is a consequence, but even the consequence within it can be flexible. Not that they get away with it, but that you find a little bit more flexibility within what you implement for them, okay? So what I want you to do is I want you to list some of the behaviors that you see in your classroom, negative behaviors that you want that should be extinguished. Okay, so I want you to make a whole list of them. And on one side, I want you to write down what is a natural consequence that could come from it if it has a clear natural consequence. And if not, I want you to write a related consequence. And next to each of them, I want you to write if it is, or you can make 2 columns, one with natural and one with related. If there's a natural consequence that comes with it, you write down what that natural consequence is. If not, you go to the related and write what a related consequence is of that behavior. Okay? So that's it for today. The next time that we do get together, we will talk about timeout. We're also going to talk about all the, we can review all the rules and the consequences that you wrote down, and also what are some of the behaviors you want to extinguish in your classroom, so that we can look at them a little bit more, detailed. Okay? So have a wonderful evening, and I will talk to you ladies soon.